All right, Porsalin. So, before I start on this whole thing, let me start by saying you could use any of this that you want to. You know, I thought maybe I should write something down, but I know if I wrote something down that I wouldn't follow it. So I'm going to try to speak candidly and honestly as I can, but this is just the papers from the paperwork from the Army. But if I have something to say rather than stutter, I'll pause. So if I pause for a very long time, I guess you could snip it out. All right, but I guess I'll start. But before I start launching my whole thing, I guess I'll start from everybody knows the I'm guessing you're going to tell the backstory about what happened in Chicago with Amethyst and Canna. So that's kind of where I'm going to start. So all right, so here it goes. Hi, my name is Charles Boris. I'm a former Unbearable. Even when I first discovered the Unbearables, I was still always kind of doing my own thing. At the beginning, the Unbearables were described to me as a group of people whose values generally aligned up, and they would joke about almost anything, but they wouldn't be a jerk about it. They would be willing to talk with you about anything. So it was attractive at the time, being a conservative, a younger conservative who's interested in meeting other people who also have similar ideas. So that's what it started off as, and that's how I got involved. When the whole Canna and Amethyst situation went down, there was a mob mentality where everybody was attacking Canna. So when they all started doing that, I felt like a coward that I didn't say something. I was kind of waiting for somebody else to be the first one to stand up and say, hey, what you guys are doing, jumping on this kid for nothing, and the stuff that you're saying is really above and beyond. But nobody did, so it got to the point where eventually I was the one that said I couldn't believe what they were saying to them. And that's when I left the group. And that was kind of the first time I left the Unbearables. Privately, some people had messaged me that they agreed with me, but they were too scared to say anything because they were scared that they would be the subject of harassment if they did say anything. So because of all this is why we started getting into the Eric Nimmer thing, and for a while that's what started the danger zone. And that's why I was in the danger zone, because it kind of started to expose the bad things that were going on, especially with Eric Nimmer, because he was the catalyst for this whole thing. And for a while, other people said that they had irons in the fire and nothing happened. Well, in the meantime, I had a falling out with the danger zone. And I had left the danger zone, and when I did, I said, I'm going to try to get this information on my own. So what ended up happening is I sent an email. Well, let me back up a little bit. What happened is there were several different kinds of report forms people were using to try to report Eric as stolen valor, but it got nowhere. So what I decided to do is I looked up groups of people that actually try to expose cases of stolen valor. And they did have a report form and everything else, but I skipped all that. I found the email address of the president of the group, which is called the Fake Warrior Project. I emailed her directly and asked her what was the best way to go about investigating the case of stolen valor and what evidence did I have. So I told them about Mr. Nimmer and turned over everything that I had, and their first response was, this sounds like a very good catch. We're going to submit the request to get his military records, and it's just a waiting game. So I waited and waited and waited. I would say that was probably around June or July is when I got in touch with these people. So it was a lot of not hearing very much. In the meantime, I made donations to the Fake Warrior Project because they're very, very, very underfunded, and they do great work, but it's just that ever since the dawn of the internet age, you really need to keep up with your websites and everything, and they just lost the ability to maintain their website and everything, so they kind of fell by the wayside. So after getting all that out of the way, it was a waiting game. And we sat and we waited and we waited and we waited. And finally, August 21st of this year, 2018, we got first our response from the Department of the Navy. They sent us 2 forms. This is the first one. Let me hold it up for the camera and see if I can actually get the letterhead to show up there. Opposite way. Department of the Navy. I don't know how clear that's showing up. But this is the document, and this is what the Navy sent to us. This responds to your Freedom of Information request for records about Eric Douglas Nimmer. We initiated a search of the files maintained by the Manpower Management Records and Performance Branch, parentheses, MMRP, but could not locate a DD Form 214, parentheses, Certificate of Release or Discharge from Active Duty, end parentheses, for Mr. Nimmer. However, MMRP personnel were able to verify that Mr. Nimmer entered the United States Marine Corps on August 2nd, 2010, and was disenrolled on July 8th, 2011. If you consider this to be an adverse determination, you may submit an appeal directly within the web-based system. And then it goes on for some other jargon about how if we don't like that request, we could, what we found out, we could submit a request for basically the same info. They couldn't give us any more, but they could basically look again, which is pointless. Okay, so that brings us to disenrollment. What exactly is disenrollment? They also attached this document to us, which is, let me hold that up for the camera, Certificate of Understanding, Reasons for Disenrollment. Sorry, I think I might have been against the mic. Certificate of Understanding, Reasons for Disenrollment. The form number at the top is NAVMC, Navy Marine Corps, 10418-2, parentheses, RAV 3-90. And this is what it says. I certify that it has been that this is basically when you get, I guess when you get disenrolled, this is the form that they send you that explains to you the reasons why. One of these reasons is why you have been disenrolled. I certify that it has been thoroughly explained to me by a Marine Corps officer. Sorry, let me start this whole thing again. I certify that it has been thoroughly explained to me by a Marine Corps officer, selection officer. That's literally what it says. That's not me. That's why I stumbled earlier. All right, I guess let me start this whole thing over again. Okay. So this is the Certificate of Understanding Reasons for Disenrollment. Number 1, I certify that it has been thoroughly explained to me by a Marine Corps officer, selection officer, and I understand that my acceptance as a candidate for commissioned grade in the U.S. Marine Corps Reserve and prior to my entrance to active duty, I may be disenrolled from this program and my officer candidate status terminated for any of the following reasons. A, failure to maintain a cumulative average of C or higher. B, failure to maintain a C average for any academic term or semester. C, failure to carry an academic course load of 12 hours per semester or equivalent. D. Failure to carry an academic load sufficient to permit completion of requirements being pursued within the scheduled period. E. Failure to obtain a degree or hours required for the program in which enrolled. F. Failure to notify the Commandant of the Marine Corps, code MROR, of a change in the major course being pursued, a change in college or university attendance, a change in expected date of graduation, a change in mailing address, any significant illness or injury requiring medical treatment, failure to reply to official correspondence, failure to notify the Commandant of the Marine Corps of any arrest or conviction, regardless of severity, occurring after my enrollment in an officer candidate program, failure to maintain the prescribed physical, academic, moral, or professional standards. I've further been informed that once my enlistment in the U.S. Marine Corps Reserve has been approved, I may be discharged for immediate enlistment or appointment to a commissioned grade in the Armed Forces of the United States, physical disqualification for active duty in an enlisted grade, reasons of extreme hardship, expiration of obligated service, for such other good or sufficient reasons which are specified and published by the Commandant of the Marine Corps. I understand that all communication between myself and the Commandant of the Marine Corps should be forwarded via my officer selection officer. So basically what this says is that if you fail to maintain your academic performance, they can terminate you. It says in any candidate program. Now, Eric Nimmer claims from his own mouth that he was a JAG candidate. So if that's the truth, the most likely scenario is that he failed to maintain his grade average. The only other possibility is, since Nimmer claims that he was sick, that he got discharged for a significant illness. So, if that's the truth, then basically what it says is that the consequences are either immediate enlistment or appointment to a commissioned grade in the Armed Forces of the United States. What is that saying? It's saying that you'll be appointed to another armed force. So basically, we sat on that information and waited because we wanted to see what the preliminary report also brought back, that he was also in the National Guard. So then we waited longer and longer. So finally, what came on November 29th of 2018, we finally got our response from the National Guard. Here is the letterhead right there. I know it might be kind of blurry. I'm sorry, my webcam is only so good, but I'm sure that you will have been provided access to these documents visually somehow. So this is what the Army had to say about Mr. Nimmer. This is in response to your request for military personnel files pertaining to Mr. Eric D. Nimmer, Jr. Your request was processed under the provisions of the Freedom of Information and Privacy Acts. The requested records pertaining to Mr. Eric D. Nimmer, Jr. are not located within the Army Military Human Resources Record, which is maintained within the Interactive Personnel Electronic Records Management System, parenthesis IPERMS for short, database. An additional search was also conducted at the National Personnel Records Center in St. Louis, Missouri, with negative results. Please note, because a no records determination may be considered adverse, you may appeal this determination using the procedures described below. However, it has been determined that Mr. Eric D. Nimmer, Jr. has a basic pay entry date of the 26th of June 2013 with a current rank of specialist and a date of rank 5th of August 2013. No other information is available at this time. And then below it says how to try to get a different determination. But basically, what is this telling us? It's telling us that they really don't have much information on Eric Nimmer other than he is in the National Guard and he had a rank of specialist on the 5th of August, and he entered in June, both in 2013. So from June to August, he was able to ascend rank to specialist. What did it say again? How was he able to do that? Ascend that many ranks that quickly? Well, if you see what it says here, is that immediate enlistment or appointment to a commissioned grade in the armed forces of the United States. So what can we most likely determine? After Eric Nimmer failed from the Marines and was disenrolled, he joined the National Guard and was appointed to the rank of specialist, probably after some minor verification. And that's where he sat. Mind you, that specialist is the most common rank in the National Guard. So that is what I have determined. So unequivocally, Eric Nimmer is a case of stolen valor. Eric Nimmer never ever graduated boot camp, therefore he was never ever a Marine. He was disenrolled, therefore he never ever saw any tours of duty in the Marines. The National Guard, who knows? From what it seems, he probably is just grinding his way, paying back what he owes to Uncle Sam. But he is certainly nothing special in the National Guard, and he certainly was never a Marine. So by default, any claims Eric Nimmer might make about any proposed service are patently false. Eric Nimmer is a liar. He was never, ever a Marine. Period. That's really about all that I have to say about that. That's how I came to this information. It was spawned mainly by the Amethyst and the John Neary situation. Nobody else was able to get this information. Thankfully, I was able to get a hold of the actual information that we needed to prove and document any military service that Eric Nimmer might have had. And just like everything with Eric Nimmer, nothing is standard. Everything's a little kinky, but nothing adds up, and none of what he tells us is true.